My name is Evelyn. Before I begin, please do me a small favor. If you love emotional stories that feel real, stories that make your heart race and your mind spin, please subscribe to this channel. Like this video, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments which country you are watching from. I read your comments, and they give me strength to keep telling my story. Now listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you changed my life forever. I was standing in my living room, holding a brown file that did not belong to me. My hands were shaking so badly that the papers inside were making a soft, scary sound. Like they were whispering secrets I was never meant to hear. On the first page, written in bold letters, were words that made my heart stop. Property deed. Private ownership. Under it was my husband's name. Not our names. Only his. And the value written at the bottom? $4,800,000. My knees felt weak. My mouth went dry. My ears started ringing. I had been married to this man for 22 years. 22 years of cooking for him. 22 years of supporting him. 22 years of believing we were building everything together. Yet here I was, finding out my husband had been hiding multi-million-dollar properties from me. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might collapse. And that was the moment everything froze. But before I tell you what I did next, the move that left him unable to speak, unable to move, unable to breathe, let me take you back to the beginning. Because betrayal does not start with papers. It starts with silence. I met my husband when I was young, hopeful, and full of trust. He was charming, confident, and always spoke like a man who had everything under control. "Trust me," he used to say, smiling. "I've got us covered." I believed him. When we got married, we promised to share everything. Our lives, our dreams, our struggles. I worked when I could, helped raise our children, and supported his business plans even when they failed. Some months were hard. Very hard. There were times I skipped buying new clothes so we could pay bills. Times I sold my jewelry to help his business stay afloat. Every time I asked about money, he would sigh deeply and say, "Things are tight right now. But I'm trying." So I stopped asking. I trusted him. That was my mistake. The first crack appeared on a quiet afternoon. I was cleaning the house when a delivery man knocked on the door. He handed me a thick envelope. "This was dropped at the wrong address before," he said. "Please make sure it gets to the right person." The envelope had my husband's name on it, but a different address. Not our home. Another address I had never seen before. I felt a strange chill in my chest. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe an old office. Maybe a mistake. But something inside me refused to let it go. That night, I asked him casually, "Did you ever own property outside this house?" He froze for half a second. Just half a second. Then he laughed. "Why would I? We can barely manage this place." His answer came too fast. Too smooth. And his eyes. They did not meet mine. From that day, I started noticing things. Phone calls he took outside. Documents locked in a drawer. Sudden business trips that made no sense. One night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. A message popped up on the screen. "Tenant payment confirmed." My heart skipped. Tenant. What tenant? I wanted to confront him immediately. I wanted to scream. But instead, I did something I had never done before. I stayed quiet. And I watched. A week later, he left early for work and forgot to lock his study drawer. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were files. Many files. Property deeds. Rental agreements. Bank statements. My breath caught in my throat as I flipped through them. Houses. Apartments. Commercial buildings. All under his name. All hidden from me. The total value? Millions. I sank into his chair, holding the proof of his betrayal. While I was worrying about grocery money. while I was sacrificing my dreams. He was living a secret life of wealth. Tears rolled down my face, not from pain alone, but from humiliation. I whispered to myself, "How long have you been lying to me?" That evening, I heard his car pull into the driveway. I quickly put everything back exactly where it was. I wiped my face. I calmed my breathing. At dinner, I smiled. I served his food. I listened to him complain about financial stress. Every word he said felt like a knife. He did not know. Not yet. But I knew one thing very clearly. I was not going to scream. I was not going to beg. And I was not going to leave empty-handed. If he thought I was weak, if he thought I was blind, if he thought I deserved nothing, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Because the next move I made would leave him completely frozen. And that moment is closer than you think. That night, I did not sleep. I lay beside my husband, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. Slow, calm, peaceful. How could he sleep so well? My mind kept replaying the papers I had seen. The numbers. The addresses. The lies. Every time he turned in his sleep, my heart jumped. I wondered if he could hear my thoughts. I wondered if he could feel the truth sitting between us like a heavy stone. But he slept like a man with no fear. And that made something inside me change. The next morning, I woke up early and made breakfast like nothing was wrong. Eggs, toast, coffee. The same routine I had followed for years. He walked into the kitchen, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're up early." I forced a smile. I couldn't sleep. He shrugged. "Must be stress." Stress. I almost laughed. He sat down and started eating. I watched his hands. Strong hands. Hands I once trusted. Hands that signed papers behind my back. I decided to test him. "Do you think we'll ever own more property?" I asked softly. You know, something for the kids. Something secure. He did not even look up. "With what money?" he said quickly. "We should be grateful for what we have." That was when I knew. He was not just hiding money. He was hiding a whole life. After he left for work, I sat alone at the table. The house felt different now. Smaller. Colder. Like the walls were listening. I needed answers. Real ones. So I did something I had never done in my life. I followed him. I waited 30 minutes, then got into my car and drove slowly behind his. I kept my distance, my hands tight on the steering wheel. He did not go to his office. Instead, he turned into a quiet street across town. My heart began to pound. He stopped in front of a tall, beautiful building. Clean. Modern. Expensive. I parked across the street and watched. He got out of the car, walked confidently to the door, and greeted the security guard like an old friend. The guard smiled and opened the gate. My stomach dropped. This was not a place you visited once. This was a place you owned. I sat there for almost an hour. People came in and out. Well-dressed men. Women carrying files. Someone handed my husband a set of keys. Keys. I whispered. "Oh my God." When he finally drove away, I stayed behind. I needed to know the truth with my own eyes. I walked up to the building, my legs feeling heavy. The security guard stopped me. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I swallowed hard. "I'm here to see my husband." He smiled politely. "Which unit?" I froze. Which unit? I had no answer. I forced a weak laugh. I forgot the number. The guard looked confused but then said, "Oh, you mean the owner? He's not here right now." Owner. That word hit me like thunder. I thanked him and walked away before my legs gave out. Back in my car, I cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just silent tears. Years of trust, gone. Years of sacrifice, wasted. Years of believing I was building a future. Destroyed. But in the middle of my pain, something else grew. Resolve. If he could lie for years, I could stay quiet for a little longer. But this time, silence would work for me. That evening, he came home cheerful. "You won't believe how tired I am," he said, loosening his tie. I nodded. "You work too hard." He smiled, proud. "Someone has to." I looked at him and wondered how a man could lie so easily to the woman who shared his bed. During dinner I asked, "Do you trust me?" He laughed. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" I nodded slowly. "That's good. Because trust, once broken, changes everything." Over the next few days, I began to prepare. Quietly. I copied documents. I took pictures. I wrote down addresses. I saved messages. Every secret he tried to hide, I collected like evidence. At night, I lay beside him, planning. Not revenge fueled by anger, but justice built on patience. He still thought I knew nothing. That was his biggest mistake. One afternoon, he told me, I might be traveling for a few days. Business matters. I smiled sweetly. Of course. I understand. As soon as he left, I made a call. A call that would change everything. The person on the other end listened carefully, then said, "If what you're saying is true, this is serious." I closed my eyes. "It's true. And I have proof." There was a long pause. Then the voice said, "Then you need to be ready. Because once this starts, there's no going back." I looked at the stack of documents in front of me. I'm ready. But I had no idea how badly this would shake his world. Because the next step I took would put us face to face, with no lies left to hide. And when that moment comes, he will not be able to move. He will not be able to speak. And he will finally understand who he underestimated. The day my husband left for his so-called business trip, the house felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps. No humming. No phone calls whispered in corners. Just me. And the truth. I watched his car disappear down the street, then slowly closed the door behind me. My heart was beating fast, but my hands were steady. This was no longer about pain. This was about clarity. I went straight to the bedroom and opened the closet. His side was neat, just like always. Shirts arranged by color. Shoes lined up perfectly. A man who loved control. I reached into the pocket of his old brown jacket, the one he never wore anymore. Inside was a small key. I stared at it for a long time. I had seen that key before. He used to keep it on his keychain years ago, then suddenly removed it. Back then, I never asked why. Now I knew. I grabbed my bag and drove back to the building I had seen earlier. This time, I did not park across the street. I drove right up to the gate. The security guard looked at me again. "Yes, ma'am." I held up the key. "I'm here about one of the units." He examined the key, then nodded. "Second floor. Left wing." My chest tightened. "Second floor. Left wing." I thanked him and walked inside. The hallway smelled new. Clean. Expensive. Nothing like the worn-out carpet in our home that my husband always said we couldn't afford to replace. I reached the door and unlocked it. The door opened slowly. And what I saw inside made my knees weak. The apartment was beautiful. Large windows. Modern furniture. A wide kitchen with shining countertops. Artwork on the walls. This was not a rental meant for strangers. This was a life. His life. I walked slowly, touching the couch, the table, the shelves. On one shelf sat framed photos. Photos of my husband. Standing proudly in front of buildings. Shaking hands with people in suits. Smiling like a man who had no worries. And then I saw something that made my breath stop. A photo of him. With another woman. They were standing close. Too close. She was laughing. His hand was on her shoulder. My vision blurred. I sat down hard on the couch, holding my chest. So this was it. Not just hidden money. Not just hidden property. But a hidden world. I did not cry. I felt something colder than tears. I walked into the bedroom. The bed was neatly made. On the nightstand was a receipt with today's date. Groceries. Wine. Flowers. I whispered. So you don't come here alone. My hands shook as I took pictures of everything. Every room. Every photo. Every receipt. Truth has a way of leaving footprints. When I got back to my car, I sat there for a long time. I remembered the nights I stayed awake worrying about bills. The times I defended him to friends. The moments I told myself, he's trying his best. All lies. But the worst part. He let me believe them. That evening, my phone rang. It was him. Did you miss me already? He joked. I forced a soft laugh. Of course. Are you okay? Fine, he said. Busy meetings. Meetings. I looked at the photos on my phone. Take care of yourself, I said gently. You too, he replied. The call ended. I stared at the screen and whispered, I will. The next day, I met with the person I had called earlier. A woman. Calm. Sharp-eyed. Serious. She spread the documents across the table. This is more than deception, she said. This is intentional concealment. I nodded. He planned this. She looked at me. Are you prepared for what comes next? Once we move forward, his image will shatter. I thought of his confident smile. His easy lies. His peaceful sleep. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. She leaned back. Then we wait. Wait. That word again. But this time, waiting felt powerful. When my husband returned from his trip, he brought gifts. Chocolate. Perfume. A smile full of false warmth. For you, he said. I thanked him and hugged him. He did not notice how stiff my body was. That night, he talked about future plans. About savings. About being careful with money. I listened quietly. And I realized something important. He was not afraid. He thought he was untouchable. A few days later, an invitation arrived in the mail. A formal envelope. My husband opened it, then froze for a brief second. Too brief to notice if you weren't watching closely. What is it? I asked. Nothing, he said quickly. Just a meeting. But his hands trembled. I saw it. And I smiled inside. Because I knew what that meeting was about. And very soon. The mask he never removed would finally fall. But not yet. Not until the moment is perfect. The days after that invitation arrived felt heavier than all the years of marriage put together. My husband tried to act normal. Too normal. He woke up early, whistling while brushing his teeth. He talked more than usual at breakfast. He even offered to help with dishes, something he had not done in years. Guilt often wears the mask of kindness. I watched him closely, saying very little. Silence had become my strongest weapon. One evening, as we sat in the living room, he cleared his throat. There's a meeting coming up, he said casually. Some business review thing. Might take a while. I nodded. That's fine. He looked relieved. Too relieved. What will you do while I'm gone? He asked. I smiled softly. Oh, you know me. Just keep busy. If only he knew. The morning of the meeting, he dressed carefully. His best suit. His most expensive watch, the one he claimed was a gift from a client. Before leaving, he paused at the door. You trust me, right? I looked him straight in the eyes. I always have. He smiled and walked out. The moment the door closed, my smile disappeared. Because today was not just a meeting. Today was the beginning of exposure. I arrived at the office building an hour later. Not with him, but on my own terms. The woman I had been working with met me at the entrance. She looked calm, professional, and prepared. "Once you walk in," she said quietly, "there's no undoing this." I took a deep breath. "I know." We walked inside together. The room was large and cold, filled with long tables and serious faces. My husband sat near the front. When he saw me walk in, his face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. I took a seat across from him. He leaned toward me and whispered, "What are you doing here?" I looked at him calmly, listening. His hands clenched into fists. The meeting began. Names were called. Files were opened. Numbers were discussed. Then the tone shifted. A man at the head of the table spoke firmly. "There are concerns regarding undisclosed assets." My husband's breathing changed. The woman beside me slid a folder across the table. "This," she said, "contains properties registered under your name but not declared within shared marital assets." Silence. Heavy. Painful. My husband stared at the folder like it was a weapon. "This is a mistake," he said quickly. "There must be some confusion." The man shook his head. "The evidence is clear." I watched him shrink. Just a little. After the meeting ended, my husband cornered me in the hallway. "What did you do?" he hissed. I looked at him calmly. "I found the truth." "You had no right," he snapped. I laughed softly. "No right. I was your wife." His face twisted with anger. "You don't understand how business works." I stepped closer. "And you don't understand what honesty means." For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. At home that night, the air felt thick. He paced the living room, running his hands through his hair. "You embarrassed me today," he said. I sat quietly. "You embarrassed me for years." He stopped pacing. "I did everything for this family." I looked up. "Except tell the truth." He turned away. That silence again. But this time, it scared him. Later that night, I received a message. A short one. "We found more." My heart skipped. More. I stared at the screen, realizing the story was far bigger than I thought. Much bigger. And soon, everything he thought was hidden would be dragged into the light. I looked at my husband sleeping beside me, unaware of what was coming. And for the first time I knew. The man who thought he controlled everything was about to lose it all. After that night, my husband was no longer the same man. The confidence he once carried like armor was cracked. Not broken yet, but cracked enough for fear to leak through. He started watching his words. Watching his phone. Watching me. And I watched him watch me. The next morning, he woke up early and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. "I couldn't sleep," he said. I folded the blanket calmly. "Neither could I." He looked at me, his eyes searching my face like he was trying to read a language he no longer understood. "You've been quiet lately," he said. I nodded. "I've been listening." That answer made him swallow hard. At breakfast, he barely touched his food. "You know," he began carefully, "there are things in business that are complicated." I sipped my tea. "So are marriages." He flinched. "I was going to tell you," he said quickly. "I just needed the right time." I looked at him. 22 years wasn't enough? Silence. He pushed his plate away and stood up. "I'm late." "Late for what?" "More lies." As soon as he left, I received another call. The woman's voice on the other end was serious. "We traced additional properties," she said. "Not just here. Out of state." My heart dropped. "How many?" She paused. "Enough to change everything." I closed my eyes. So this was not just betrayal. This was strategy. That afternoon, I drove to one of the addresses. A large house stood behind tall gates. beautiful, quiet, protected. A woman answered the intercom. Yes. I froze. I had not expected that. I'm looking for the owner, I said carefully. She smiled politely. He's not home. My stomach twisted. Do you live here? Yes, she said proudly. With my partner. Partner. The word echoed in my head. I thanked her and drove away, my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over. So it was true. He did not just hide money. He built another life. That night, I did not confront him. I waited. Waiting had become my strength. At dinner, he talked nervously. They might ask for more documents, he said. But it's nothing serious. I looked at him. Are you scared? He laughed too loudly. Of course not. But his eyes told the truth. Later, as he slept, his phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. A message appeared. They are digging deeper. Fix this. My heart pounded. So he knew. He knew everything was falling apart. And instead of telling the truth, he was trying to escape it. The next morning, he surprised me. We should talk, he said. We sat across from each other in the living room. I may have made mistakes, he admitted. But I did it for us. For us. I repeated softly. Yes, he said quickly. Security. Future. Comfort. I leaned forward. Then why was I never included? He had no answer. That evening, another message came in. This one was different. Meet me. I can't do this alone. I stared at the screen. Someone else was involved. Someone close. Someone scared. And suddenly, I understood. The lies were collapsing from the inside. And very soon, one of them was going to break. The message stayed on my mind all night. Meet me. I can't do this alone. I read it again and again, my heart beating faster each time. This was not my husband's voice. This was fear. Real fear. And fear has a way of making people tell the truth. The next morning, my husband acted strangely calm. Too calm. He made breakfast, joked lightly, even hummed to himself. But his hands shook when he poured the coffee. I have a long day ahead, he said. Meetings. Paperwork. I nodded. Be careful. He paused, studying my face. You're not angry anymore, are you? I looked up at him. I'm patient. That answer unsettled him more than anger ever could. As soon as he left, my phone buzzed again. Please. Today. I replied with just 2 words. Where? When? The response came quickly. Noon. Old River Cafe. I exhaled slowly. So this was it. Old River Cafe was quiet and nearly empty when I arrived. The kind of place where conversations disappear into soft music and clinking cups. I chose a table near the window. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then I saw her. The woman from the gated house. She looked different now. No confidence. No pride. Just worry. She sat across from me, hands clasped tightly. You're his wife, she said quietly. I nodded. And you're the secret. Her eyes filled with tears. He told me you knew, she whispered. He said you agreed. I almost laughed. Agreed. I leaned forward. He lied to both of us. She covered her mouth, shaking her head. I gave up my job for him. He said everything was safe. Safe. Another lie. She pulled out a folder. I can't sleep anymore, she said. I can't live like this. Inside were documents. More deeds. More accounts. More names. Some in her name. Some in his. Some in both. My chest tightened. He planned everything, she said. If anything went wrong, he would blame me. I closed my eyes. So that was the plan. Use everyone. Protect himself. Why tell me now? I asked. She looked up, tears streaming. Because he's getting desperate. He's talking about moving money. Disappearing. My heart skipped. Disappearing where? She shook her head. I don't know. But he's scared. Good. Fear was finally doing its job. That evening, my husband came home late. You're out? He asked, trying to sound casual. I smiled. Just coffee. With who? He asked quickly. I met his eyes. Someone who finally told the truth. His face went pale. He tried to laugh it off. You're imagining things. I stood up. No. I'm seeing clearly for the first time. His voice rose. You're trying to destroy me. I stayed calm. You destroyed us all by yourself. He slammed his fist on the table. You don't know what you're doing. I stepped closer. Oh, I do. And that terrified him. That night, he did not sleep. He paced. He made calls. He whispered urgently. I lay still, listening. Every step he took sounded like a countdown. Because now I had something stronger than suspicion. I had witnesses. And witnesses change everything. Very soon, the man who thought he controlled every story would lose control of his own. And when that happens, even his voice will fail him. By now, fear lived in our house. It moved with my husband. It followed him from room to room. It sat on his shoulders when he thought I wasn't looking. And I was looking. Always. That morning, he did not go to work. Instead, he sat at the dining table, staring at his phone like it might explode. You're not leaving? I asked calmly. He forced a smile. I took the day off. That alone told me everything. He had never taken a day off before. He cleared his throat. We should talk, properly. I poured myself some tea. We've been talking for years. You just never told the truth. He rubbed his face hard. You don't understand how dangerous this is. Dangerous. That word finally slipped out. Dangerous for who? I asked. For everyone, he said quickly. You, me, the kids. I looked at him sharply. Don't bring the kids into your lies. His hands trembled. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Some of those properties, they're tied to people you don't want to upset. I raised an eyebrow. Are you threatening me? No, he said fast. I'm warning you. I nodded slowly. Then you should be very careful with your warnings. Because I was no longer afraid of him. He was afraid of me. That afternoon, someone knocked on the door. My husband froze. I stood up. I'll get it. He grabbed my arm. Wait. I looked at his hand on my wrist. Let go. He did. At the door stood a man in a dark suit. Good afternoon, he said. We're requesting additional documentation. My husband's face went gray. The man handed him a card. We'll be in touch. After the door closed, my husband lost control. This is your fault, he shouted. You opened your mouth. I stayed calm. No. The truth did. He paced wildly. You don't know what you've done. I watched him carefully. You're panicking. He stopped. I'm protecting us. I shook my head. No. You're protecting yourself. That night, he finally cracked. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I never meant for it to get this big, he whispered. How big? I asked. He swallowed. Too big to fix. That was the first honest thing he had said in years. My phone buzzed again. Another message. He knows I talked. I'm scared. I looked at my husband. He was watching me. Too closely. Who's that? He asked. I locked the screen. Someone who's done hiding. His jaw tightened. Later, as the house went quiet, I heard him on the phone in the bathroom. We need a plan, he whispered urgently. No, not later. Tonight. My heart pounded. Tonight. I lay still, listening. Every word felt like a warning bell. Because I knew one thing for sure now. My husband was no longer just lying. He was preparing to run. And if he ran, he would leave destruction behind him, including me. That night, I did not close my eyes. I lay in bed, staring into the darkness, listening to every sound my husband made. The soft click of his phone. The slow footsteps to the kitchen. The whispered calls he thought I could not hear. But I heard everything. When someone is planning to run, their fear makes noise. Around 2 a.m., he slipped out of bed. I stayed still. The door to his study closed quietly. Too quietly. Minutes passed. Then more. I counted my breaths, forcing my heart to slow down. This was it. Whatever he was doing now would decide everything. At dawn, he came back into the bedroom, acting like nothing had happened. "Morning," he said, stretching. I sat up slowly. "You didn't sleep much." He shrugged. "Too much on my mind." I looked at him carefully. "Like what?" He avoided my eyes. "Just work. Always work. Always the lie." After breakfast, he announced, "I need to step out. Just for a bit." I nodded. "Of course." He grabbed his jacket, hesitated, then said, "You know I love you, right?" I looked at him. "You say that when you're afraid." He froze for a second, then forced a laugh and walked out. The moment his car disappeared, I picked up my phone. Now it was my turn. Within an hour, I was sitting across from the woman who had helped me from the start. Papers covered the table between us. "He's preparing to move assets," she said calmly. "And possibly leave." "I know," I replied. "That's why we move now." She studied my face. "You're sure?" I nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." She made a call. A short call. But one that changed everything. That afternoon, I did something my husband never expected. I went to the bank. The manager smiled politely. "How can I help you?" I placed documents on the desk. "I'd like to review all accounts connected to my marriage." The smile faded slightly. As records were pulled up, the room grew quiet. The manager cleared his throat. "There are significant discrepancies." I met his eyes. "I know." When my husband returned home, he was tense. "Have you been out?" he asked. "Yes," I said simply. "Where?" he asked too quickly. I smiled. "Handling family matters." His jaw tightened. That evening, his phone rang again and again. Each call made him more nervous. Finally, he snapped. "Stop looking at me like that." I stayed calm. "Like what?" "Like you already won," he said bitterly. I stood up. "This isn't a game." His voice dropped. "Then why does it feel like a trap?" I looked at him slowly. "Because it is." For the first time, he stepped back. Late that night, a message appeared on my phone. "It's done. He can't move anything now." I closed my eyes. The net was tightening. My husband sat across the room, rubbing his temples, unaware that every path he planned to escape through had just closed. And tomorrow, he would finally realize that the woman he underestimated had already outsmarted him. The morning began with silence. Not the normal, comfortable kind. This silence was sharp, heavy, waiting. My husband sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone like it had betrayed him. He refreshed the screen again and again. Nothing. No confirmations. No transfers. No replies. His hands began to shake. "Something's wrong," he muttered. I poured myself coffee. "Is there?" He looked up at me, eyes wide. "The accounts, they're not responding." I took a slow sip. That happens when things are frozen. His cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Frozen. He stared at the broken pieces like he was seeing his future. He stood up suddenly. I need to make a call. I blocked his path calmly. Who to? Move, he snapped. I didn't. Sit down. Something in my voice made him obey. That was new. His phone rang. He answered on speaker without realizing. Everything's locked, the voice on the other end said urgently. All of it. My husband's face drained of color. This isn't possible, he whispered. It is, I said quietly. He turned slowly toward me. What did you do? I met his eyes. I stopped waiting. He backed away, breathing hard. You went behind my back. I nodded. Just like you did for years. You ruined me, he said hoarsely. No, I replied. You exposed yourself. Another call came in. Authorities are asking questions, the voice said. Someone talked. His eyes darted to me. You? He asked. I stayed silent. That silence told him everything. He sank into the chair, hands gripping the table. I built all of this, he whispered. I can fix it. I leaned forward. You can't fix what you never owned alone. His breathing became shallow. He looked small. Lost. I trusted you, he said suddenly, almost crying. I felt something twist in my chest, but it wasn't regret. So did I said softly. A knock came at the door. 3 sharp knocks. My husband froze completely. I stood up. I'll get it, he whispered. Please don't. I paused at the door, hand on the handle. This was the moment. The one he feared. The one I had prepared for. I opened the door. And his world stopped. 3 people stood at the door. 2 men in dark suits. 1 woman holding a thick file. None of them smiled. My husband stood behind me, frozen in place. I could feel his fear without turning around. Good morning, one of the men said calmly. We need to speak with you, sir. My husband's mouth opened. No words came out. Not one. They stepped inside, their shoes making slow, heavy sounds against the floor. The living room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. The woman opened her file. We've been reviewing a number of properties, accounts, and transactions connected to your name. My husband finally found his voice. There must be some mistake. The man shook his head. There isn't. I sat down quietly. This was not my moment to speak. This was his moment to face everything. They listed addresses, bank names, dates, amounts. Each word landed like a blow. My husband's shoulders sagged with every sentence. Then the woman looked at me. Thank you for your cooperation, she said gently. He snapped his head toward me. You planned this? I stood slowly and looked at him. I protected myself, I said. Something you never did for me. His voice broke. I did it for us. I shook my head. No. You did it to control us. He reached for me. Please, we can fix this. I stepped back. That chance ended when you chose secrets over honesty. They handed him documents. His hands shook so badly he could barely hold them. You are required to comply fully, the man said. Failure to do so will result in serious consequences. My husband nodded numbly. The door closed behind them. Silence filled the room. He sank to his knees. Actually sank. The man who once stood so tall, collapsed. I never thought you'd do this, he whispered. I looked down at him. I never thought you'd betray me. He stared at the floor. I underestimated you. Yes, I said calmly. You did. That was the moment he truly froze. Not because of fear, but because he finally understood. That night, I slept alone. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. Not because the pain was gone, but because the truth was finally free. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful, emotional stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and remember, sometimes the quietest strength comes from the one everyone underestimates.